Hello, students. This video is a walkthrough of the UDL Part 2 Metaverse Lesson Plan. And I wanted to go through a little bit about Metaverse first, and then we'll talk about the actual lesson plan that we'll be doing. We're going to go ahead and look at a 1-minute clip of some students using Metaverse and see if you can get an idea of exactly what Metaverse is all about. They'll be looking through their own mobile devices, and what they're looking at are the experiences that were created for them. So it looks like it's floating in air. So see if you can see some of those experiences that they're using. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get an idea of what it's about. I turned the sound way down so it's not so loud. So these are students, and you can see they have their iPads and they are starting the Metaverse experiences. And what you'll see here is when they look, they can see a character and they can see buttons to choose from. And these are questions that were created within the Metaverse experience. So I'm going to go ahead and just let it play. It's only 1 minute long, and we'll see what they see. So that one has a whale of some sort. Everybody likes this one. For you in your Metaverse experience, you'll be selecting these objects, and you can include all of these items. You'll be deciding what the questions are. You'll be deciding what paths happen when they click the button. And you can see this is augmented reality because we can see the real world, but we can also see the items that are being brought into the real world. We talked about augmented reality and mixed reality. These items are overlaid on reality. They don't look like they belong there. So that's a little bit different than mixed reality, in which it would blend in with the real world. So what we're going to do is, in order to plan out that experience, you can see that there are buttons, there's characters to pick. What I've created is a kind of pseudo lesson plan, which helps me kind of storyboard out how I want to go about and create my experience. Now, I say sort of storyboard out because once I get in there and start creating these scenes, I always end up changing it. So this is, again, a little bit of a rough draft. So when you go in, you're not making those decisions as you go. The other good piece to this lesson plan is that you can go and get the pictures, videos, links to videos, links to websites that you might want to use ahead of time, and then creating the experience is much easier when you have those kind of brought over onto a lesson plan. Now, I'm not going to complete the whole lesson plan and go out and get a bunch of videos and things like that, because I think that just takes up time and you already know how to do that. I'm just going to talk you through each of the sections and also the minimum requirements. To actually go and see how the experience is created, I did do a separate video for that. So go ahead and create it, and I walk through the entire experience of creating a Metaverse experience. You'll want to go ahead and test your Metaverse experience to make sure that it works. And 9 times out of 10, it won't work the first time. Things aren't linked correctly, but that's okay. We're trying to get to where you go through the experience, you fix the bugs, and try to get it all the way to the very end, to where you are exiting your experience. And again, that's in a separate video. For now, let's go ahead and look at the Metaverse lesson plan. And this is the part 2 of the lesson plan that you did last week when you did the UDL lesson plan. So this is the next section down, and we're going to just put it all on one. And that's what we're going to look at next. So let me share my screen again. This is part 2 of your UDL lesson plan, and this is planning your Metaverse experience. Again, this is kind of like storyboarding. You have to understand a little bit about Metaverse before you actually plan the experience. So I recommend either going out to the website, to the studio website with all the links that are in Blackboard and in the module and also in the instructions, and going out and looking at others' experiences and see what they're doing with them. I'm going to assume in this video that you've done that, so you kind of understand what I'm talking about when we talk about these items. So go do that first, and then if necessary, come on back. The first section we're going to talk about are the purpose and the type of experience. Why are you creating this experience, other than I'm making you create it for EDU 120? But why are you creating this experience? Is it a way for students to get the content for the first time? Is it a supplement to some lesson you've already been teaching and you're just kind of giving them some trivia? Or maybe it's to supplement some of the information you've already done, such as you're teaching a unit on Shakespeare, and now this is going to be an experience where they go through the life of William Shakespeare. The type of experience is equally as important based on what you're trying to do as far as the purpose. So if the purpose is to follow up on information you've already taught, you might want to do a breakout game, a clue game where they answer questions to get clues to open a box at the end, or an escape room type situation. All of those types of metaverse experiences are out on the Metaverse website. And again, I've included links to all of these pieces of information about Metaverse in the instructions and in Blackboard and in the module. So you have plenty of places to find it. But the purpose is really the first thing that you need to know. The second thing is, what are you going to have them do? In some cases, it's really just an experience of bringing them through the module for the first time and allowing them the experience of getting that first information in multiple ways. For instance, we might ask them if they would like to see a video on the content, or maybe they would like to read about the content first. Maybe it's they want to go do a game first. So those are options. Remember, in UDL, we like to give options. So in this case, maybe I have something that says, would you like to read the instructions for your Metaverse experience, or watch a video of me doing the Metaverse experience? And different types of learners might take different paths, but it's one experience. So that's a little bit of an idea of what you can do as far as the purpose and the type of experience. Next, because Metaverse is so dynamic and has so many characters and themes to choose from, you want to have an idea a little bit ahead of time, or maybe go look at Metaverse a little bit before you decide on this. But having a general story, theme, or something about your content would really be a good way to tie this all together. So a general theme might be Harry Potter, and everything in your experience is related to something about Harry Potter. I did a Metaverse experience in which Harry Potter was going to school and he needed to measure his dorm room at Hogwarts to see where he can put up his famous wizarding posters. So that's kind of the idea of the theme. It was a math-based experience, and I used Harry Potter as the theme. The other ideas one of my students came up with was Romeo and Juliet, and their theme was going to the ball with Romeo and Juliet. And the experience allowed the student to, the student user, whoever was experiencing this metaverse, to decide if Romeo and Juliet stay together or they end up apart. And that was part of the whole experience in their metaverse. And it was very interesting because they had 360 videos, which allowed the user to use their mobile device and look around at the masquerade ball. Very creative. It was a very good metaverse. So that's the general theme. You also might want to go with something that's very timely. If you're with the younger group, it might be Paw Patrol, and then everything is Paw Patrol. And what does that do? That provides interest and motivation. As we learned in the theory of learning, is that you need motivation. You need to build interest in order for students to want to struggle through. So maybe a member of the Paw Patrol has to get to the end in order to receive a doggy treat. Again, that's for younger kids. Maybe the older one is a famous rapper, or maybe it's a movie, Game of Thrones, that everybody's kind of into at the time. Pick whatever is interesting for your target audience and your age group. And all of this will be based on your UDL part 1. So what standard did you pick? What area did you decide on? Science, math, and so on. And what age group? So I did habitats, animal habitats. So I would want to pick something that's woodland animals, or something that has to do with trees or nature or something like that. You can also throw in some fun characters just to mix it up, but that's the general idea for theme. The flow or outline, which is the next box, this box right here. So the general flow is, okay, how am I going to introduce my topic? That's always the very first thing that you have to do. How are you going to introduce it? And then what are the general paths you want to take? As I mentioned in mine, I decided first I would introduce what a habitat is, and then I might ask them give them 3 options to go to a video, go to the internet, maybe take a poll question. And so I would just, almost like we did in MindMeister, kind of concept map it out a little bit. And that just helps me flow through this experience, which is very logical, a very logistic type learner. So we're testing all the boundaries with this project of different types of learning. But that's the idea. If you're going to do open-ended questions, which is one of the requirements, think of that ahead of time before you get there. And then that helps with characters and things like that. If I want to approach this as maybe they get to explore habitats when they first come in. So I may ask them, which habitat are you most interested in, and give them some ideas. So that's a completely different flow. So it's a good idea to just, maybe for the first, 10 scenes, kind of decide the flow of your experience. Then we talk about the requirements. For this project, you'll need at least 10 scenes. And if you haven't watched the video, scenes are basically little squares in the Metaverse app that you fill in information. So you need at least 10 of those. And believe me, with this project, you'll have at least 10 just by the requirements. So make sure that you have at least 10. You want to be sure that all the UDL principles are represented and aligned with the lesson plan. And we help you with that a little bit farther down on the lesson plan. And you want to check to be sure that your first scene, which is usually scene 1, includes the title of your project and your name. So mine would be Dr. Arbogast, Animal Habitats. And I've also given you some links on here back to those UDL checkpoints, the guidelines, which lead up to the principles. So here are the scenes that you need. And I only have a few that you have to have in, and then you get some choices here. So I'm following the UDL principles for your project as well. So one scene must include sound or music. And obviously some of these will overlap. So again, just because you have all of these doesn't mean you have 10 scenes necessarily, but in general, these projects require 10 scenes. So one scene must include sound or music and make it relevant to the situation. If I'm doing animals, I might want a happy sound. If I'm doing you're correct or you're incorrect, I might do a buzzer or a ding, ding, ding bell to say that they're right. You could do applause, that kind of thing. Don't just add sound to add sound, make it mean something. One scene must include a link to a relevant website or a document, a link to a video. Make sure that it's relevant to the theme and the outline and the standard that you're actually trying to teach. You create a multiple choice question. So it has to be at least one multiple choice question, one open-ended question. So the multiple choice question will be a scene with buttons that are correct and incorrect. And you'll have to have another scene. If they select the correct button, it goes to a scene. And if they select the incorrect button, it goes to a feedback scene that basically says, sorry, try again. The open-ended question is a response input screen. And that is something where you need to include the keyboard. And again, watch the video on how to do these types of things. But make it a question that actually has more than one answer. So open-ended means, how did you like this experience? Don't use that one, but you want it to be a question that's not who was the first president, okay? You want to make sure that it's something that they can express their own opinions on. One scene must be a text response screen. Again, it's the same and different as the open-ended question. A response scene can have an open-ended question, but then you need to make sure that you have that input is a response scene if you're going to use it as your open-ended question. So some of these, again, will overlap, and that's okay. Then you get 3 scenes of your choice. So you might decide to be adventurous and add a 360 video or a 360-degree picture portal. You might want to add a poll question. You might want to add a camera scene so you can do a selfie. So those 3 are up to you. The other aspect of this is in this column right here where it says UDL principle achieved and checkpoint. So you want to open up that checkpoint UDL diagram that we've been using in the module. So what does including sound or music mean as far as a UDL principle? So let me give you an example. When I say a relevant sound, that is because we want it to associate with the UDL principle of offering alternative means of reading of text. So that could be a sound. So instead of saying you win, I could have a ta-da, or I could have a sound that says you win. And that could be that UDL principle. So you want to copy and paste, just like we've done with every other standards, ISTE standards, Ohio standards. You can copy and paste the checkpoint. So what you want to do is first state the UDL principle, multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, multiple means of action and expression, and then go down through the guidelines down to those checkpoints and copy and paste the checkpoints. And they'll have the 1.1, 7.1, and they'll tell you like offer alternative means of text. So we want both those things, the UDL principle and then the checkpoint that goes along with that UDL principle. And you want to do that for each and every one of these. And when you go back and look, and there could be multiple for sound could be multiple principles. But when you get all done, you should make sure that all 3 UDL principles are represented somewhere in here. And that shouldn't be too hard to do. They should be pretty obvious for you after doing the module and everything else that you've done for UDL. And then the other thing I really want you to understand is this project will be very easy for some types of learners. Very logical learners, it's very easy. They can connect the dots very quickly. Others will have a more difficult time with this, and I do understand that. Augmented reality might be overwhelming for some students, but what I am looking for is project quality, which means you have really attempted to make this project work. I can see that you've done the research on the content you want to provide, you selected the standards. Even if your project ultimately does not work, it's okay. I want to see that you've put the work in. It could just be one minor little glitch or a link that's not linked correctly. And if you want to make sure that your project works, please work with me, get with me. I will be happy to zoom in with you if you want and look at your project, and we can test it out and see where maybe the issues are. But we can even do that after the semester. I don't want you to worry too much about that, but I do want you to try very hard to get it to work all the way to the end. What you'll find is you have really learned a lot. And when you get out into your classrooms, I've had students come back to me and say, my mentor teacher thinks this is the coolest thing. And they really look to us to be the innovators, because students very young, you can see in the video that we did at the beginning, are very capable of doing these types of things, sometimes even more capable than we are. So that's why we want to keep trying and testing ourselves on these things. So hopefully this walkthrough has been helpful. I did give a few examples down here of ways that you can show the checkpoints and also how they kind of match up with the left-hand side of the lesson plan. Again, as always, if you have any questions or issues, please get a hold of me before the due date would be great, so we can work on the problem and get it in on time. Good luck. have fun, be creative, let your inner creativity flow, and let's see what great projects you all can come up with.